right, so this lesson is the first lesson of fractions, decimals, and percents in your textbook. So go ahead and write a title, and you can pause the video if I'm ever going too quickly. All right, so this should be in your notes section. And this is on page, let's see, page 235 in your textbooks. All right, so we're going to begin the notes. We're going to be talking about how to go from a percent to a decimal and a decimal to a percent. And this should be a little bit of a review from what you already know. So example 1, write each percent as a decimal or decimal as a percent. All right, so 61% really means that I have 61 out of 100. So that percent means for every 100. So if I were to write this as a decimal, I like to rewrite it, and then I like to place the decimal, and then I'm going to divide 61% by 100, and when I divide by 100, I move the decimal twice to the left. And now I'm left with 0 and 61 hundredths. You also need to make sure that you remove the percent sign when you do that, when you go from a percent to a decimal. All right, so now we have 8%. So once again, I'm going to rewrite that underneath. I'm going to add my decimal. I divide by 100, which means I move the decimal twice to the left. And now I have 0 and not 8 tenths, but 800. So I need to put a 0 in the tenths place. And once again, I removed that percent sign. All right, C, 0 and 27 hundredths. So when you go from a decimal to a percent, you are actually now multiplying by 100, not dividing by 100. So now I have 27%. Make sure you add the percent sign. All right, this is D, 0.3 repeating. So if you think about what that really means, that means 0.3333, and that goes on forever. So if I were to multiply this by 100, I move the decimal twice to the right, and I get 33.3 repeating percent. So that 3 after the decimal is going to keep repeating itself. All right, so to go from a percent to a decimal, first you remove, the percent sign, and then you divide the number by 100. When you go from a decimal to a percent, it's the opposite. You multiply by 100, and you add the percent sign. All right. So example 2. Now we're going to talk about how to write a fraction as a decimal and a percent. Write each fraction as a decimal and percent. All right, so this is A. All right, 4/5. There's 2 methods for this. Method 1, you're going to find, you're going to look at the denominator and see if it goes into a power of 10. So the powers of 10 include 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million, etc. So 4/5, 5 does go into 10 evenly. It also goes into 100 or 1,000, but 10 is the smallest power of 10. So 5 times 2 is 10. So 4 times 2 is 8. So we have 8/10. So you can easily write this as a decimal. And we can also write this as a percent though. When we multiply by 8/10 by 100, and when we do that, that means that the decimal moves twice to the right, and we're left with 80%. So our two answers are 8/10 and 80%. Method 2, you can divide. So 4/5, remember fractions are division. So when you say 4/5, that's the same thing as saying 4 divided by 5. 4 divided by 5. Let me move that down a little bit so I have room. Okay, so 5 doesn't go into 4 evenly. So I'm add a decimal and a 0. 5, and I need to make sure I include a decimal in my quotient. 5 does go into 40 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. You subtract, you get 0. There's no remainder. So once again, you get 8/10, which is the same thing as 80%. All right, the last example. This is example B. Oh, one note though before we move on to example B. Method 1 only works when the denominator evenly goes into a power of 10. So 10 to the power of 1 is 10, 10 to the power of 2 is 100, 10 to the power of 3 is 1,000, etc. So those are your powers of 10. All right, so this is the last example. 5/11. So let's review the directions. Write each fraction as a decimal and percent. Okay, so method 1 is not going to work because 11 doesn't go into a power of 10 evenly. So I'm going to divide 5 divided by 11. I add my decimal and 0. I'm going to add my decimal as well in the quotient. All right, 11. Oh, you know what I meant to do actually? This should be 15. Sorry. 15 11ths. So 15 divided by 11. So again, I add my decimal. 11 goes into 15 one time. 1 times 11 is 11. Subtract, you get 4. You bring down the 0. 11 goes into 40 3 times. 3 times 11 is 33. You get 6 when you subtract. I'm sorry, no, 40 minus 3 is not 6. It is 7. Add a 0, bring it down. 11 goes into 76 times. 6 times 11 is 66. You subtract, you get 4. Add a 0. 11 goes into 40 3 times. So you're going to find that the 3 and the 6 are going to repeat itself because I see 40 here, 40 here, so I know that the 3 and the 6 will just keep repeating. So to write this as a decimal, it's 1.36 repeating. So if I were to write this as a percent, I'm going to rewrite this. So this is what the decimal looks like if I were to repeat 3 and 6 for a little bit. So if I multiply by 100, I move the decimal twice to the right, and now I have 136.36 repeating percent. Now you would not write it like this, 136% with a 3 and the 6, with a repeating sign over the 3 and the 6 and the 10s and the 1s place. You only put the repeating sign after the decimal. So that would not be correct, okay? This would also not be correct if I asked you for the exact percentage because we know that the 3 and the 6 keep repeating. So that would also be a non-example. All right, now you are going to do textbook practice and practice the skills that you just learned today.